Hello, hello, everybody. This is Sharika Matthews of Live Life Beyond Barriers. I hope everyone is enjoying their Memorial Day weekend this weekend. I know up here in Chicago, it has been very, very warm. It's been very sunny. And I'm just really hoping and praying that you all are actually having and enjoying not just this Sunday evening, but the whole entire Memorial Day weekend. Now, I definitely want to thank you for taking your time out of your weekend to join me here for another soulful conversation. I actually thought about canceling or postponing tonight's conversation, but I know that there is somebody somewhere tonight who needs the information I'm going to share here tonight. So thank you for joining me here. Soulful Conversation was created because I know there are things that we need to talk about, because I know that there are things that are on your mind that we really don't get to talk about very often, especially in a public forum. So I created this space as a way to start the dialogue, to give you some information that you can use and apply to your life and to your relationships. So tonight, our topic for tonight is renewing your relationships. Because one thing that I know for sure is this, and you heard me say this before, we as women, but even as human beings, we were created for relationships. Even God himself represents relationship. God the Father has a relationship with God the Son, who has a relationship with God the Holy Spirit. Hey, Robert, thank you for joining. And so, but even though relationships is something we were created to experience, something we were created to have, unfortunately, relationships is that part of our lives that many of us struggle with the most, whether it's our romantic relationship, our friendships, or even our family relationships. And that even extends into our professional relationships as well. And so tonight, I want to talk to you about some things that you can do to rekindle, restore, reignite, or even start over or start a new relationship with someone that you already know or with someone that you want to get to know. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit the share button, because I guarantee you, if you have questions about relationships, there is somebody in your circle that has questions about relationships as well. And also for those of you who are new to me, again, my name is Sharika Matthews. I am a life and relationship coach, but what I really do is that I help and I coach and I teach women on how to live their best lives, on how to reclaim who they really are. Because I know that as a woman, we tend to wear so many hats and we tend to do so many things and we tend to pour out into so many people that we often lose ourselves in the process. We also lose sight of who we were created to be because we are so busy serving, we are so busy giving to other people. But I help women reclaim their power, reclaim themselves, and walk fully and unapologetically into the life, into the womanhood, into the purpose for which they were created. So that's really who I am. That's what I do, and that's why I created Soulful Conversations. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and grab pen and paper, because if you've been with me all throughout last week, you already know that you're in for a treat, that you are in for some good, juicy information I'm going to share with you here tonight. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit the share button, because the more that this information gets out, the more people's lives are going to be changed. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the topic of renewing and rebuilding your relationships. Like I said, relationships is something that is a part of our day-to-day lives. It's a part of who we are inside of our household. It's a part of who we are when we go out into the world. And it's a part of who we are when we show up at work. But the reason that a lot of us struggle in relationships, we struggle in creating friendships with people whom we can trust. We struggle with creating romantic relationships with people that we can give our hearts to. And we even struggle in our family relationships, often doing things out of obligation, often doing things that enable people to continue in unhealthy and bad habits. So we haven't yet learn the continual practice of creating healthy, balanced relationship that adds value to you and adds value to the world. And part of that is because there are four main parts or four main factors to relationships that help you be successful in relationships, that help you create relationships that actually speaks to your soul, that actually helps you and actually adds value to the world. So the four main components of relationships, this is something that you want to write down. The four main components are intimacy, trust, communication, and conflict resolution. I'll repeat that. The four main components are intimacy, trust, communication, and conflict resolution. And so when and this is an excerpt from a lesson I've done a couple of years ago, but when we talk about definition, we talk about words, when we talk about components, you want to make sure that we all understand the same thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually go through and define these words so that we are very, very clear on what these things mean and what it looks like in the realm of relationships. So when we talk about intimacy, intimacy is one of the first levels of relationships. When we talk about intimacy, we're not just talking about physical intimacy. We are talking about the closeness that happens on a mental level and on a spiritual level. So the definition of intimacy says it is a close association with, or detailed knowledge of, or detailed understanding of a person. I'll repeat that. Intimacy is a close association with, detailed knowledge of, or a detailed understanding of a person. So when we talk about intimacy, you're basically saying, how well do I know myself? How well do I know my sister? How well do I know my husband? How well do I know my coworkers? How well do I know my friend? And it's beyond just knowing a person. It also says a detailed understanding. Do you understand why they move the way they move? Do you understand why they do what they do? Hey, Donnell, thank you for joining. So do you seek to understand a person? You see, oftentimes we accept who a person is. We accept the way they are, but do we understand why they have these quirks? Do we understand why they are afraid of the dark? Do you understand why they're such control freaks? Because when you begin to understand what makes up a person, then you really begin to know them, and you really begin to understand, okay, does this person belong in a relationship with me? Does this person can this person accept this level of responsibility that I'm giving them inside of a relationship? Or simply we get to a level of understanding, you actually begin to have sympathy and empathy and begin to move in that space with them in a different way. I hope that makes sense. Because when you understand what makes up a person, then you understand how you can be in their presence and how they are in your presence. And so you begin to take less offense to some of the things that they do, because you understand that, yes, this person has gone through heartbreak. Yes, this person was abused. Yes, this person, they have a money issue because they lost everything. They were homeless for 6 months. You begin to understand some of their fears, some of their words, some of the ways that they move, and you actually end up being a part of that healing process. If you were with me last Thursday, we talked about the purpose of relationships. The purpose of relationships are twofold. Number one, the first purpose of relationship is for you to experience the love of God through a person. Then the second purpose of a relationship is for God to reflect back onto you the parts of you that needs healing. You see, when someone comes in our lives, or we come into someone else's life, there's probably going to be a healing that takes place. There's going to be a revelation about who you are and why you do the things that you do. And the same is going to be true for that other person. So you could end up being a part of that person's healing when you understand what is happening with them on a deeper level. So that is why it is important for us to be intentional about developing intimacy, for being intentional about developing knowledge, and being intentional about developing an understanding of a person. Hey, Sean, thank you for joining. So that is the first part. The second component of a relationship is developing trust. And trust is a big issue in today's society. So much so, I actually taught 2 sessions of overcoming trust issues to my group, because we have to learn how to trust. Because the truth be told, we have trust issues with other people. We have trust issues with God. And if we are really honest with ourselves, we have trust issues with ourselves. We don't trust ourselves to make the right decisions. We don't always trust ourselves to make the right move. But what is trust? So the dictionary defines trust as the reliance on the integrity, strength, and ability of a person. I'll repeat that. Trust is defined as the reliance on the integrity, strength, and ability of a person. So when we think about reliance, I mean, I can rely on you to be a person of integrity. I can rely on you on your personal strength. And this goes back into intimacy. You cannot rely on a person's strength if you haven't paid attention to know what their strengths and their weaknesses are. See, oftentimes in our relationships, we try to rely on a strength that we want somebody to have. Like, I know a lot of women will say, oh, well, men need to be emotionally strong and men need to be physically strong. So I'm going to rely on my man to lift up all these heavy boxes, or I'm going to rely on that man to be my emotional strength and my emotional rock. Not really realizing that this man may not be as physically strong as you want him to be, or this man may have been emotionally abused and he is not in a position to be your emotional rock at this time. So that is why it is important for you to first develop intimacy, and then based on the intimacy, develop trust in that person's integrity, strength, and ability of who he is or who she is as a person. So that's trust. The third component of a relationship is communication. And we have heard this time and time again, how important communication is. But what is communication? A lot of us think that communication is just using our words, it's just talking. But communication is actually an interchange of thoughts, opinions, and information. I'll repeat that. Communication is the interchange of thoughts, opinions, and information, meaning that communication goes both ways. I use my words, you use your words. You see, oftentimes we want people to read our minds, we want people to read our body language, we want people to read our eyes and read our lips from across the room and stuff like that. Or we just expect somebody to just know us because they grew up with us. We expect somebody to know us because we sleep in the same bed. No, communication requires that I am very clear and direct with you about what it is I need and what it is that I want out of this relationship. Just like you have to be very clear to me about what it is that you want and need out of your relationship with me. If I never use my words to tell you what that is, and if I never use my ears to hear you and to understand what it is that you really want, that is where the communication issues break down. Thursday we talked about some of the things that we do to sabotage our relationships. And some people use the silent treatment. And the silent treatment is one of the worst things you can do in a relationship. The only reason you should use the silent treatment in the relationship is when you are silencing yourself so that you can recenter yourself, let go of your negative emotions, and then come back into the conversation with a clear mind and a clear head so you can communicate effectively about what it is you need to happen now, what it is that's your heart desire, and what you need from this person and from this relationship. So communication is the interchange of information. The fourth thing is conflict resolution, which goes back into the communication, which goes back into the trust, which goes back into the intimacy. When I look up conflict resolution, the first part of it is conflict, which is basically a disagreement, really, right? When we think about resolution is defined as the act of resolving, to come to a definite decision or course of action. You see, if we cannot learn to come to a decision, to come to a course of action when we disagree with someone, then that breaks down the relationship. That I am always a big proponent of evaluating your relationships, especially your friendships and the people with whom you are dating and doing business with, on whether or not they need to be in your circle, whether or not they display the character strengths, and I'm going to get to that a little bit later. If they display the character strengths or the character traits that you need to have in your life. If someone is disrespecting you, if someone is physically hurting you, if someone is mentally manipulating you, that is not somebody that you want in your circle. That's not someone you really want to have a relationship with. And so that does require that you, I would say, cut off that person out of your life, right? But if you have a disagreement with your best friend, if you have a disagreement with your husband or with your wife, then that requires you to learn how to resolve the conflict. It doesn't require arguments. It doesn't require fighting. It doesn't require the silent treatment. All it does is say, okay, I think that the toothpaste needs to go in the cabinet. You think the toothpaste needs to go on the bathroom counter. Let's come to a resolution. What can we do to come to a compromise? Or what are the facts and the information that's present to support either way? You have to learn to use your communication. You know that you can trust this person because he has integrity, and then you're intimate enough with that person to know what motivates that person to want things the way that they want. So that's what I mean by conflict resolution. So when we learn to master these four things, intimacy, trust, communication, and conflict resolution, that is what lays a solid foundation in our relationships, whether it is with people at work, people whom we consider our friends, people in our family life, and then those of us who are in romantic relationships. We have to learn to master these four components if you want to add any fire, add any excitement, or restore, rebuild a relationship. So if you're having issues in one of four of these areas, I'm going to share with you I have 4 steps here, 4 things you can do in order to renew, reignite, rebuild, or start over in a relationship. So the first thing that you really want to do is to see them for who they are. So this goes back into intimacy and expectations. You see, oftentimes we meet someone, and again, women, we do this a lot, and I believe some men do this too. When we meet somebody in our romantic relationship or someone who has the possibility to be in a romantic relationship with us, we have these expectations. So, a man may say, well, a woman should know how to cook and clean, and a woman should say, well, a man should know how to change the oil and change the tire. So we have these expectations, and then when they don't meet these expectations, then we feel some kind of way. Then we start to degrade them and disrespect them and say that they are not who they say they are, when in reality, we did not see them with our physical eyes. We did not see them with our spiritual eyes for the person that they truly are. Meaning, you have to observe a person's character. If you don't hear anything I say today, hear this. Know a person's character. And you get to know a person's character through observing their actions, through observing their habits, not just one time. I saw this guy, give away money one time. What is his habit? Does he have a habit of being a giving person? Does he have a habit of being a responsible person? Does he have a habit of being a loving person? Pay attention to the habits. And let's go back here. Because character, let's not confuse character with their talents. Let's not confuse character with their gifts. Right? Character is the totality of their features and their traits that form their individual nature. Meaning it is something that is intangible. Their character is intangible. It is what makes up their thoughts. It is what drives their morals, or their morals will influence their character. So some character traits you want to look for: honesty, loyalty, are they devoted? Are they kind? Are they ambitious? Are they grumpy? Are they pessimistic? Are they dominant? Are they confident? Are they inquisitive? Are they playful? Are they affectionate? Are they wild? Are they impatient, or are they stubborn? Those are just a few of the character traits. And if you notice the character traits I just listed, you see none of those are things you can put your finger on. I can't say, I just put my finger on this person's stubbornness, or I just put my finger on this person's kindness. No. All these things are going to be made up of the decisions that they make, the consistent decisions that they make, the consistent habits, the words that they use, the beliefs that they have, how they show up in life. What drives the decision-making process? How do they treat other people? One of the old wives' words of wisdom that's always given to women is that they say, pay attention to how a man treats his mother. Why? Because how he treats his mother is how he's going to treat you. Meaning, how a person treats the person closest to them is more than likely going to be a reflection of their character trait. So you have to listen to their words, listen to signs of their beliefs. And my biggest thing also is to make sure that their words match their actions. And this was a lesson I learned the hard way. There have been so many times in my life that I believed a person's words because at that moment in my life, I needed to hear those words. Maybe I was really disappointed by someone, or maybe I was recently heartbroken by someone. And then someone else comes along and says the words that I need to hear. And they show, individual or isolated acts of kindness, isolated acts of chivalry, isolated acts of being a genuine person. But I did not take the time I did not take the time or have the patience that I needed to really observe whether or not that their words match their actions long term. I'm telling y'all, don't make that mistake. Always step back. And specifically for women, trust your gut, trust your spirit, because there is a reason why God gave you intuition. That is the spirit of God that's living within you. And so when you feel that disturbance in the pit of your stomach, when you feel that disturbance, it's like, ooh, something ain't right. Pay attention to it, because what we end up doing is talking ourselves out of our intuition, talking ourselves out of listening to the voice of God. And anytime that you have this internal dialogue, when you're trying to justify why you feel the way you feel, you want to be careful about that. Because oftentimes the Spirit of God will reveal something to you or say, Sharika, something is not right. Sharika, something is wrong. Sharika, pay attention. Don't trust this person. And then you begin to say, well, that person hasn't really done anything for me not to trust them, or I really haven't seen any signs. No, trust your gut, because your spirit can see things that you cannot see physically with your eyes. So step back. Doesn't mean you have to run away immediately, but step back and say, okay, God, show me what I need to see. Show me whether or not this person is genuine. Show me whether or not this person is true to his word, so that I can make sure I'm seeing this person for who he is. And so when you begin to see people for who they really are, based on their character, based on their words that matches their actions, and based on their daily consistent habits, then you can decide what circle they should be in. You guys know the movie Meet the Fockers, which is a funny movie. But one of the things I really remember from the movie is the father of the family. He had this whole thing about being in the inner circle. So there's an inner circle, there's an intermediate circle, and there's an outer circle. And oftentimes we have this really good naturedness. Like, we want to trust everybody. We want everybody to be good people. And so we invite everybody into our inner circle before we vet them. We invite everybody into our inner circle before we qualify them. And we don't qualify them enough by their characters. We only qualify them by what we see in a certain moment, instead of qualifying them by the totality of their actions, by the totality of their words, by the totality of their habits. So you have to qualify people to decide, okay, can I let them into the outer gates? Can I let them into the inner gates? And can I let them into my innermost gates? So you have to decide, once you observe who they really are and accept them for who they really are, what circle they should be in, if they should be in any of your circles at all. So that's number one, see them for who they are. Number two, trust them for who they are based on their character. And I use this example all the time. We want to trust Susie to hold our purse when we go do something else. And then, we come back an hour later, we get our purse back from Susie, and we're like, where the heck is my money? Why is my money gone? And now you mad at her because she stole your money. But she's like, why are you mad at me? I'm just being who I am. You know that I have sticky fingers. You know I just got out of jail for stealing, money out the cash register. You know this about me. So why would you trust me with your purse? Knowing that this is a part of my character. I am not a trustworthy person, knowing that I tend to take things that don't belong to me, right? That's an extreme example, but how many of us have done that? We expect somebody not to cheat on us, even though that we know they have a history of cheating. We expect somebody to be honest with us at work, even though we know that they got to their position by being dishonest and by stepping on other people's back. We expect people to support us when we need support, even though we know that they only show up when they want something from us. But yet we feel some kind of way because we're saying, I should be able to trust you to do X, Y, and Z, when it is not in their character. So the second thing you must do is learn to trust people based on who they are, based on their character traits, not based on who we want them to be. So that's number 2. Number 3 is then to love them for who they are. Love them for who they are instead of being irritated about who they are not. How often have you gotten irritated about your husband or about your son for not picking up their socks off the floor when they simply are not a clean person? There are some people that you go over their house, you're like, ooh, I expect you to be a neat freak, but yeah. But then when you marry them, you move in with them, and you expect them all of a sudden be clean because you're clean. Because you think that you have the power to change someone. You think that you have the power to influence somebody overnight. Instead, just love them for who they are. Focus in on their strengths and on the good things that you admire about them instead of trying to change the bad, instead of getting irritated about who they are not. And praise them. Praise them for the things and for the value that they add to your life. And this is something to think about as well. One of the things that I always say when it comes to my relationships is that I only want to be in relationship with people who add value to my life, and I add value to theirs. So what value do these people add to your life? And whatever value that is, praise them for it. Show them appreciation. I really thank you for being my friend. I really thank you for being, a voice of wisdom when I need it. I really thank you for holding me at night when I need comfort. I really thank you for having my back at work when I needed to dip out really quickly, go pick up my son from school. Thank you. I appreciate you because you add value to my life. And then when it comes to love as well, another form of love is to allow them to grow, to change, and to make mistakes. Allow them to grow, to change, and to make mistakes. One thing that we are hard on others because we are hard on ourselves, right? We hold ourselves to these standards that really aren't realistic, and then we hold other people to those same standards, or we hold people to standards that are higher than the standards that we hold to ourselves because we feel as if that they should know better, they should do better, that if I can do it with ease, then you should do it with ease. No. Allow people to grow in their own space, in their own timing. You are not responsible for their growth. And then allow people to change because experiences and life happen and beliefs change and what they want and desire out of life change. So allow people the room and the space to change. And then the hardest thing is allow them to make mistakes, especially in romantic relationships, because trust for a lot of people is really hard to give. It's scary for us to allow someone to make a mistake in a relationship because then that fear pops up that says, ooh, he made a mistake, oh, she made a mistake. That means you're probably going to get hurt if you allow them to go this way. So we tend to either run or we tend to try and control that person. We tend to try to control what they do or how they do it, or we end up taking on everything for ourselves. For example, you don't trust your husband to put the baby to bed because he doesn't rock the baby right. So I'm just going to do it myself while I'm cooking dinner, while I'm vacuuming the floor because he don't do it the way it needs to be done. Who cares if it doesn't do it the way he needs to be done? If he doesn't rock the baby just the way you need it to be rocked, let him figure it out. It's okay. The world is not going to end. He's not going to drop the baby. He's not going to do any harm to the baby, because you know that it is in his character trait to have your best interest, to have the baby's best interest at heart. So when you know that he has your best interest or the baby's best interest at heart, then let him learn. Even when it comes to family relationships, especially, allow your sister to learn from her mistakes. Allow your brother to learn from your mistakes. Yes, you can be there for them if they fall, if they should need you. All you have to do is hold the space for them and let them know, hey, I am here for you whenever you need me. But you don't always have to be their rescue. You don't always have to take control over their lives. You don't always have to take all the responsibility away from them because they don't do it right. They don't do it the way you were taught, instead of letting them forge their own way or learn things on their own. So love allows people to make mistakes. Love allows people to have their own experiences. Love allows people to grow. So that's the third thing. Love people for who they are and where they are. And then number 4, the last thing here is to focus on serving. My mantra for relationships is this: if I take care of you and you take care of me, I don't have to worry about taking care of me because you're taking care of me. Now I am free to take care of you and do everything else. That really is the ultimate place you want to be. You want to get to a point in your romantic relationships, in your family relationships, or even in your professional relationships, where you have a certain level of trust, where you don't have to always be selfish and look out for you first. You can actually move from a space of love, from a space of do unto others as you will have them do unto you, because you have examined their characters. You have built a certain level of trust. You have developed a certain level of knowledge and intimacy, of knowledge and understanding of a person. So now you're in a space of, I don't have to worry as much, because now I can focus on serving you because you are focused on serving me. But as with all things, again, trust your gut. Don't go out and just say, I'm just going to serve and I'm going to love on everybody, because God didn't create fools, okay? That's why God gave us our intuition and our gut. So when you start in a relationship, whether it's with your mother, your sister, your brother, your romantic relationship, or a friend, if you find yourself serving, giving, and you're not being fed in return, step back. Listen to your gut. What is going on? Is this just a moment that this person experiencing where they don't have the capacity to give back to you? Or is this who they are? Are they takers? Are they selfish people? Step back and examine their character, because again, you have to vet people. You have to have a qualification process in order for you to allow people in your life to get to this level where you can trust them in a relationship with you. Okay? So those 4 things again are: see them for who they are, meaning examine their character traits. Number 2 is to trust them for who they are based on their character traits. Number 3 is to love them for who they are. And number 4 is to focus on serving. All right, you guys, I hope that this particular video was a blessing to you. You know, when I do these things, I do it because I have seen so many questions and I've read so many of your posts, and I've even gotten dozens of DMs asking me questions about relationships and how do you trust somebody, how do you determine whether or not somebody should be in your life. So this video was a blessing to you. Go ahead and hit the share button and share it with your friends and family. If you have any questions or comments about anything I said here today, leave a comment below and I will be sure to respond to that. I do want to invite you back here tomorrow night at 8 p.m. I know it's Memorial Day, but we want to keep the conversation going. You guys don't have to work tomorrow. You have some free time. So after you get done barbecuing, after you get done celebrating the holiday, you come back home, you're starting to get ready for the rest of your work week. Join me here tomorrow at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, because tomorrow we're going to talk about why it is important for you to think highly of yourself so that you can be happy. Why is it important for you to think highly of yourself so that you can be happy? So join me back here tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And again, thank you so much for joining me here tonight and taking time out for another soulful conversation. All right, you guys, I have a great, great night, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.